Hello fellow critics, welcome back to the alley. The show's still seething about that time a creeper snuck into my house, spawn killed me, and obliterated all my stuff. I don't care if it's 7 years later, I'm still mad about it. Also, small disclaimer, I wrote and got this all recorded in November last year. It was set to come out right after the Beetlejuice episode, and then someone stole my laptop with all my projects and a bunch of my memory cards and all my stuff in it. So, let's just pretend it's November of last year and this is all still current, okay? Cool. Now, that being said, moving forward with the stuff I wrote then. Guys, we got a trailer for a movie that I've been looking forward to ever since we saw Angry Birds hit the films. Minecraft is getting its own movie now. The virtual Lego playground that we've come to love already promises a vast and aesthetically pleasing world, helmed by none other than Jack Black as our hero Steve. I am yet to be disappointed by a Jack Black performance, and this is giving me heavy Jumanji sequel vibes, which was surprisingly good. I had very low expectations for that. Things look great, except this. Something about this isn't right. It's time for the internet to speak up and save that sheep like they did with Sonic the Hedgehog. So the trailer was only a couple minutes long, but each picture is worth 1,000 words, and this blockhead is more full than a chest full of chests. I'm pretty confident I know what's gonna happen and why. We have a few things to go over, but the biggest one to me is we have real, actual people in a digital world. And Jack Black is our material girl. Our new group of protagonists step out of the blue portal and come face to epic face with Steve and his magnificent Wizard of Oz, yeah, beard. My immediate thought is, dang, Steve, time has passed. So the older man, Steve, has some serious implications when you consider the fact that the Steve we've come to know and love has no gray, even in his goatee model, which many people agree is older than his babyface model. So he aged through the updates, like we did through the loading times. The next squealing plot point is the hordes of bloodthirsty piglins. Their existence implicate even further timeline nonsense because they only exist after a certain time, technically. They come pouring out of the red netherworld portals in greater numbers than midnight skeletons, snorting certain doom for our heroes. We watch this new group of heroes marvel at the digital world they find themselves in and experience one of the most basic functions in the whole world. Crafty. That tells me this is their first time, because an experienced player can always tell when it's someone's first time. So what does this mean for the movie? Why did I open my gaping maw to begin with? For a few minutes going forward, I'm going to refer to some of the diamond grade work done by fellow overthinker MatPat over at the Game Theorists. He's a smart fellow who I highly recommend if you enjoy my content. Anyway, that's enough about my friend I haven't met yet. The good old Matty has been answering questions and making a generally well-accepted timeline. And I'm going to be referencing it going forward, sticking my own cube-shaped opinions here and there. Let's dance, Matty. Alright, so his timeline starts way back with what he calls the ancient builders. That's important now and later. The apple kind. Because that's my favorite. Steve and Alex are descended from them because they can build things and the villagers cannot, so they're a different species. And that's about where Minecraft proper starts. You, in a random location, basically naked and afraid. No understanding of why. We uncover that the ancients not only made a portal to the nether, but to the end as well, in that order. So this seems to be more than just a theory because the community has responded positively to it without saying it's correct outright, because you can't lift a blocky curtain too high. The timeline follows the tale of how the ancient builders rose up, gained their powers, and then poof, disappeared. And they continued gaining power over different forms of magic and technology until what we can only assume was war tore this great society asunder. Because war never changes. Does that sound familiar at all? We find what's left of them in the form of the Endermen, who come back much later again in his story as well. I'm just kind of glossing over what I need to for you to understand what I'm talking about and where I'm coming from with why I'm making the theory that I'm making. But if you want to know more about the Enderman and you like where he's going, go check out the channel, man, and go learn more because knowledge is power. And for those of you who left immediately to go learn and are just getting back like an old save file you found from years ago, welcome back. Alright, charging forward like a Steve hungry vindicator. So the original builders be building, and farmers be farming, and fishers be fishing. Things we can tell from the artifacts that we find under the ground in certain regions. The coastal builders even became fishermen and pirates. Captain Blockbeard the pirate would have been horrifying. The desert dwellers were the ones who started poking around with darker magic. I would imagine it was likely due to the leader's philosophies. It's also an interesting Egyptian reference. We were just hanging out with Osiris a couple episodes ago. The Egyptians also have a huge interest in life after death, as well as the desert tribes in Minecraft. Think of the Ankh and the Tome of the Undying. They even had tombs and booby traps. It's funny because I expected the swamp builders to be more into Bayou Boogie, considering all the voodoo that you do hear about down in New Orleans. Down in New Orleans. Can we at least get a unique Shrek mob that wanders around the swamp much like the Warden does? He could say, "What are you doing in my swamp?" and stay neutral until you either mess with him or his companion, because we already have a donkey in game. Get to it, Mojang. I'll start the petition myself. So, the Dirty Desert dudes delve deliberately deeper down darker domains, doing deliberately dirtier deeds. The next important thing on the theory trail is the nether portals, as they uncover the magical land of fire and brimstone. Only the magic here seems to be very different from the overworld, with objects like soul sand literally sucking the soul from your deceased body so that it can raise you from the ground like a puppet and add you to its ranks, leaving your spirit to stain the earth in a horrified charred echo. This is before you even find out what happens when you climb into a bed in the nether. It's a truly cursed place. Ain't no rest for the wicked. Although conquering the dark world wasn't enough, things got darker. This is where things seem to get a little questionable, because there seemed to be a big pushback against the dark arts. Something that even seems to be reflected in the way that the villagers and the darker illagers seem to be at odds with their studies of magic. Like when your neighbor starts drinking too much and partying too often and won't stop messing with the fabric of life and death in order to control the power from beyond the grave itself. Rascals. I'm presuming that the villagers and illagers idolize the builders because they could just make objects appear from thin air to their eyes. This to me says they eventually push each other until war happens. That's why there's netherworld fortresses and strongholds. Why would you make those if you weren't preparing for some sort of battle? They're not called Dark World Towers or Dark World Resorts or Hellscapade Hotels. And then we mentioned the dark origin of the piglins. You know those dudes got more screen time than Steve himself during that trailer? Yeah, they're the result of countless pigs being twisted into heckish forms by the magic of the nether. Some people suggest that they were planned to be food brought in by the people who were initially cultivating this dark land, but I think they were more recruited or abducted and experimented on until they became soldiers, much like the orcs from Lord of the Rings. They're just oppressed creatures that are bad guys by association. More on that on a different server later. Either way, the piglins exist and they're not happy about it, or their hellish home. So they come vengefully skipping in like a double bacon knuckle sandwich with avocado. So what this tells me is that Steve, since we don't see Alex, is the only builder around, or as we have learned, the only human around. And while that's all well and good, I'm sure it would cause some loneliness. And that isolation escalated to invasion. They needed to get some help, assuming that Alex is even somewhere around there since we haven't seen her. Fortunately for them, they have stumbled upon this. A blue portal. A way home. Something that he may have even forgotten about given how much time had passed, like we mentioned. And out of that portal steps reinforcements just in the nick of time. We can tell this because it does seem that the chief export of the nether is pig monsters and hellfire, and the world around them isn't quite burnt to a crisp yet. So there's still time to grease those frying pans. Pork punching and Padawan training will be the main focus for the new arrivals. We're probably going to learn more about Steve and find out why we didn't see Alex or any of the other villagers, really. Unless... Nope. Just more of those dumb things. Seriously, guys, we gotta do something about that because we will likely learn more about piglin lore as well. Maybe one will speak and be the vocal point of his people. Speaker pig. My final and actual prediction will be, at the end of it all, Steve will be faced with a choice. To go home to the real world or stay in the home that he's created. Which is the choice that many of us are given after a life-changing event. Do we push forward and keep the adventure going? Or do we recognize the gray in our beard and hang up our pickaxe for good?
Can we even do that? Or have we been down in the mine so long that we no longer find solace in the world we once knew? Because that world is gone now. We're different now. That loneliness became peace. And maybe that's the block that we should take from this wall. Uncovering who we are will take us back to square one. One brick at a time. Critically yours, The Fox.